Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Meeting Gold podcast. It's been a little bit, but we've got a special guest today. You were referred to me by another guest that we've had, Mitchell Tychinski, who was an amazing guest, and he said, man, you got to get my mortgage agent on. And I'm like, okay, all right, let's give this a try. And then I see, Carmen, you have your own talk show.
Yep, I do.
We'll get into that today, but Carmen, welcome to the show, and can you give everybody a little bit of a background on who you are?
For sure. My name is Carmen Costa. I am a mortgage broker, mortgage owner of a brokerage. I'm a mother of four.
Wow.
And entrepreneur at heart. I truly adore the human connection. I'm all about human connections. So.
Yeah, I can tell. Well, you know what? We'll talk about that today. Now, what got you to get into the mortgage world? Because a lot of people, you know, they like it's a commission job, right? So I know a lot of people younger, they're like, okay, I trust my sales skills and I want to develop those. How can I do that? Well, being a real estate agent is one way. It's probably the most thought of way, but there's money elsewhere. There's insurance, there's finance, there's mortgages. So what led you into the mortgage world?
So I started with Scotiabank about, I'm not even going to say years, 18 years. So I started about 18 years ago with Scotiabank. Usually with every job, and I knew I was an entrepreneur because every job I would end up in management. I would end up in a management
Interesting.
role. Yeah, within the first 3 months, they were like, okay, we're going to push you. I'm a hard worker, so I know that, but it's all mindset. So it's my mind that plays. So it's not like I'm trying to prove to everybody around me. It's more of an internal, I've got to do this, I've got to learn this, I've got to, I have to know everything about this business. So when I walked into Scotiabank, the manager came over and I interviewed her. I said, so what's this business? She's like, can you just come back tomorrow? We're hiring. So I was maybe salaried employed for about 2 years, and one manager came to me, Judy, God rest her soul, she passed away last year.
Oh, unfortunately.
So she came to me and she said, you are a sales role. And I said, well, I'm living at home. You know what? You're right. I am going to try it. So I did try it, and I loved everything about mortgages.
The sales aspect of it.
No, I liked the home ownership. I loved helping people get the financing. But there came a point at Scotia where there was just so many boxes that you had to be fitted into. So I decided to go into, brokering, which was called the dark side. So I entered into the dark side because my son was born and they didn't know what to do with a female sales role. They were like, what do we do with her now? Do we give her mat leave? If you take mat leave, all this commission is forfeited. And I'm like, no, you can't do this. So, I ended up working when he was 3 weeks old. They gave me the 3 weeks old, like the 3 weeks time off. And then I said, you know what, if I'm going to do this with a baby, I'm going over to the dark side. So I went over to the broker side, and a lot of restrictions on the broker side. It was more of a man's world. So, it was. So I wanted to build an empire where if you were a visionary, like you had the entrepreneur, you had a vision, I was going to help you fulfill that dream, right? Under your corporation, right? So you got to remember everybody, so Mitch is one of my agents. I always say to them, you're not my employee. You're an entrepreneur looking to build your business like I did, right? So I just give you the flexibility to do it, right? So so I took on a lot of risk 5 years ago, and, today I can honestly say it's paying off. There was a lot of heartache because if with the entrepreneurial role, there's a lot of highs and lows, right? Yeah. So people don't always see your vision.
And we always talk about this. I like how you said that there are a lot of highs and lows. Yeah. And it's hard for anybody, any human being, okay, no matter who you are, right? Any human being to not ride those highs and lows. It's very hard. It's hard to not be super motivated on the high. And then when it's super low, you're just kind of in bed and you're just like, what am I doing?
Exactly.
Everybody's doing something better than me. I'm so focused on everybody else. So how did you kind of learn to I always call it flatten the curve. How did you flatten the curve of being an entrepreneur? Because clearly you wouldn't have stuck with the entrepreneur role if you couldn't learn to, instead of riding this,
100%,
ride this. So how did you do that?
So I'll be honest with you, the first 2 years you ride with your emotion. So you're like, oh my God, I'm so high. Then oh my God, I'm so low. Eventually I learned to, I want to say it was a book I picked up, and it was about self-development, and it helped you prepare for battle. So it's always prepare for battle. So you're mentally preparing for those lows. So when the lows come, you know that you can deal with it. You're like, oh, okay, I can actually get through this. I can actually do it because this is what I was taught. It's just like training for the Olympics. You're training for that one moment for it to happen, right? And I tell my team, you're always preparing, and they get it. So they get the motivational quote that goes out that I write out every night. It goes to them every morning, and it starts them on a high because this job is difficult. It's sales. You go up, you go down. So, and Mitch is one of them that says, that quote you send out with all, what you write out is so true. But what they don't know is I have 40 agents under me. So if somebody is dealing and being impatient, then I'm going to write about being impatient and how to be patient. And that's going to come out the next day because chances are everybody's riding the same wave.
That's true.
If mortgages are really busy, we're all really busy. If we're really slow, we're all really slow. But I'm not going to tell you my struggles. That's the human nature. We have an issue with discussing our feelings when we're at a low. So what I do is I try to catch it before it happens with the team. And it has proven to be well because I always say, if you keep a sales agent in a positive nature environment, they will perform. But if you keep somebody in a negative environment, they're going to fail. They're going to fail.
And that goes into, I always talk about this as being a likable employer or likable team lead, let's call it, right? So, I mean, that's pretty impressive. Thank you for the idea. To my team, I will start doing that. I
love it.
I think that's a great idea just to keep people motivated and stay connected. Whether it's meeting in the morning for 15 minutes before even your shift starts, just meet for 15 minutes.
100%.
Ask everybody how they're doing.
I'm going to say a powwow. Let's do a powwow, right? I do that with my admin staff. So
I love it.
My admin staff they have to deal with everybody that's got they have a 911. So chances are if you're admin, you're dealing with 911s. How do you keep the admin staff from giving attitude to the agent, right?
That's
and I always tell them perspective. I need you to understand that this agent is trying to feed their family. So if they feel something's wrong, just be patient with them. It's not against you. They're just trying to get through this emotion, right? So, people forget we all have these different emotions that we're trying to navigate. You're doing it at your level, of age, what age you're at, and I'm doing it at my age, right? Yep. At your age, I was a mess, right? So I was like, I always said I was the salesperson that was amazing. I was a top producer, but my emotions were out of control, where if I was getting angry, I was getting really angry. Now it's more about this will happen. And I tell the team. And
you flatten those 100%. Waves.
Yes.
You know what? This is something that we haven't really talked about. So let's talk a little bit more about this emotions. Yes. Because I think a lot of people, it's not faking your emotions. It's not faking being happy. No. Or not. And in fact, I think this word happy in the workplace, I would rather say satisfied.
Exactly.
Because I think if you say that you're happy, that means that you're riding the wave of something that happened. Like if you signed a big client, your reaction shouldn't be jumping for joy. Sure, maybe go out for dinner. But play it low key, don't freak out about it, because if you're going to freak out about signing this big, huge client, what happens a year from now when you lose a big client? Are you going to get down about it?
Exactly. No, I'm more about, I do tell the team that they have to recognize all the different frequencies of emotions. So you have the lower frequencies that would be fear, sadness, depression. These are all low frequencies. They need to recognize what they feel like. You need to know everybody goes through it. It's natural. The problem is it's taboo. We've made things taboo where, when you hear now with this pandemic, all this depression, right? And then you're like, oh, here we go with the kids and depression. Kids don't know what depression is. Yep. They don't know what that feeling feels like. But if you as a parent or you as a mentor explain to somebody what emotion and what's happening, and then you tell them some solutions you may do, get up, go outside for a walk. Your frequency changes automatically. Or, read something positive. Your frequency raises up, right? So you're getting yourself out of that frequency and you're rising above it. But people just don't learn about frequencies. And it's a scary thing.
Let's talk about that. So specifically with your team, okay? Yeah. Especially with your admins, because I think a lot of people in the outside workplace, admins are looked on as the assistants. Yeah. I'm going to be honest.
They
are the ones that actually make the business run.
100%.
Because without an ad, the leader, the agents, all that's great. But for somebody to get something so well done and deal with people
100%.
on such a like you said, low or high frequency levels, especially those low frequency anger, frustration, stress, 100%. Anxiety. An admin plays the most crucial role in keeping that client, making sure that client, the bridge, there's no gap.
There's no gap.
Okay, so what are some, like maybe 3 or whatever it is, what are some techniques that you've told your admins to counter the low frequency calls that they may get?
I always say connect with me. So I personally, so I'll explain to you what I do as a leader. So you may think, okay, so I lead. I don't. So like I do lead, but I take care of me. So on a mental front, so when you meditate, you raise your vibration. So I make it a point to meditate every day because that's going to help my frequency. So if you come at me, let's say as an admin, you're like, you're never going to believe what happened. The first thing I do is gossip, anything that's like bad, negative talk. You can't come to me with that. You have to come to me with a solution.
I love it.
So this is my problem, but this is my solution, Carm. Don't come at me and just say, because I don't do well with gossip. I'm not a gossip person. So I'm more like transparency, right? And people are getting used to that. They're like, wow, she's so straightforward. So you get the, oh my God, she's so straightforward. What they don't see is it's transparency. So as much as you think, this whole world is energetic. We're all energy, right? So if I have, let's say I'm talking to you, we're doing this show right now. Before I come in, I'm like, oh, he's such a this, that. Right. And then we sit down. You will not know the energy you're feeling, but your first gut instinct is something's off. I don't know what's off about her,
right.
But it's all energetic. And if people start to review or start to do like read books on energy, you'll understand how to deal with the human race. It's very simple, right? So when I sit with my staff, I know when they're off and I'm like, whoa, wait a second. What's going on? Let's talk about this. Let's shelf whatever you're doing right now. Let's put it to the shelf. Let's talk about you. What's going on? Because if you're not happy, clients are going to know. And I always say, like I said this to Mitch, am I allowed to? I'm not allowed to swear, am I?
You can swear all day. Okay. Yeah, go ahead.
So, I can teach you mortgages all day long, but if you're an asshole, I can't teach you to be a good person. I can teach you how to be a good person, but you have to want to make that change. And if you don't want to make that change, nobody's going to want to deal with you. Like even if in your face, I'm like so good, you're going to have that feeling and you've had it where you've gone on the lot to go buy a car and you're like, something about this guy just doesn't sit well with me. You do that, right?
Yep.
It's all energetic. So if I have a high frequency and I'm like a go-go person and I'm trying to solve problems, not make problems, people will want to deal with you. They just naturally gravitate towards you, right? Because people are like, how can you still run a big book of business? I run a big book of business because my clients know who I am.
It's very transparent.
It's transparent. Yep. Yeah, extremely transparent. But you have to remember this is an energetic world. Like we're all energetic beings. And, I always say to Mitch, I know this sounds weird. And he's like, no, I'm reading up on it. Like Tesla teaches about it. Mm-hmm. You guys all drive your Tesla cars and Tesla's method is all about energetic. And once you pick up that, like a book about energies, you'll understand and your life will change. Right. So, and I say that to Mitch is like, oh man, my numbers keep going. Yeah. And Mitch, because you're learning about, the secrets to life. Right.
Yeah.
And that's what they say, the secret, the power of thought. Right. We're going to make it commercialized so people will understand it. If you look at the basic formula, it's simple. Very simple.
So Carm, you have a show. It's called The Real Talk.
100%, yeah.
Correct? Okay. Now, you talk about energy. Yeah. Let's incorporate the energy into the show that you have. What is the strategy behind starting The Real Talk? I know you've had it for quite some time now, but what is that strategy? Why did you start it? And is that a way to maybe let people know of your energy? I'll let you answer that question.
So we had Reclaim Your Energy. We did have that podcast. And then all of a sudden it hit me. I'm like, I kept doing this. This is me here, and I love spiritual meditation. Yep. This is me. I'm a mortgage broker. This is me. I'm a mom who homeschools. I'm all over the place. And I sat with Jamie. I said, I feel like I'm torn. I feel like, okay, here's Reclaim Your Energy. Here's being a mom. Here's,
you're all over the map.
It was too much. Yeah. So I'm like, you know what? Let's just do Real Talk. Let's just slam it all together. And I can talk about whatever I want. So the big transition that happened in my life, 2 weeks ago, opening my own brokerage and finally taking the plunge and not worrying about being under an umbrella, right? I'm like, Jamie, I'm going to talk about it. He's like, okay, well, it's Real Talk. Do what you got to do. But we're talking about it. And Real Talk is a channel where I'm neutral. I'm not giving opinions. I'm talking about who I am as a human being. So I always say, this is my big trademark now is this. Like, I don't want you commenting if you got negativity. Like, I don't want to hear it, because the truth is that's your perspective on your side, right, and my perspective's my perspective. But I think social media has made it where you can travel through social media, you're going down, you're going up your feed, and all of a sudden they see your channel and they're like, something about this kid don't like, and then they start commenting. I think we lost track of respect and values and morals. Why not encourage somebody for what they're doing? Why not give them the love? Why does it have to resort to hate? Why do we have to resort to low frequency vibration to like run on life, right?
So let me jump in there. So, okay, so you say, you know, this person comments on social media and they're just like, they're leaving, people call it like hate comments, right?
Yes, correct.
How would you suggest, and not that these people would listen, but for other people that are genuinely trying to change or just their way of thinking or know that they have an issue with this, what are some ways you would suggest on how someone, let's say me, can see your perspective?
I'll be honest with you, hate or not, I always send love to everybody. I'm all about, like, if you were to comment, I always send love to the person. I've never engaged in, and this back in the day I did, but I mean now, like, I don't engage in, if you're like fired up and you're rapid, I always say rapid hate, where you're like sending all those texts. I'm more along the lines of, I'll send you love back. That always throws somebody off. Like, think about it. Like, I don't know, somebody says something negative to you, you turn around and you're like, you know what, you look awesome today. That throws somebody complete. And I do this to my agents. They'll walk in and they're miserable. And I'm like, you look awesome today. You look so good. And she's like one girl in particular, she's like, you do this all the time to throw me off. And I'm like, I do it because I don't want you in that frequency. I want you to be higher. So as soon as you rise up above that frequency, you're awesome. You're amazing, right? You're performing at your best level, right? And as much as, you know, everybody's like, oh, spiritual, whatever, it's a sales game. It's just the way sales work. If I'm at a high frequency, you're going to want to deal with me.
So that's so going back to the perspective point. So being able to see somebody else's energy and to understand where they're coming from. And
compassion.
Yeah. Empathy. And like you basically saying, okay, I see your perspective. How can I assist you? And then doing something like that, like throwing them off. I love that. You'll say somebody looks good or something.
You know what? Do it. I'm telling you right now, even on social media, I'll send like a personal DM and say, you know, I'll send like a positive quote or something, and they get annoyed, so they unfollow you. Which is, listen, at their own time, I want to emphasize, people will, and I always say awoken, people will be awake when they want to wake up. Right now, they just want to live in that moment, right?
So you can't force somebody.
Like, yeah. So it's not like and I always say I'm not better than people. Like a lot has changed, and I think Jamie documented was the 30-day fast I did. I did a 30-day water fast, and that's where, you know, everything changed in my life. So I could have said I was spiritual. I could have said I was whatever before that. After that moment, there was so much like that happened to me internally that nothing catastrophe-wise could ever happen that I would be like, you know, oh my God, the world's ending, right? So I think we just learn to deal with situations as situations arise,
right?
But with the positive attitude, right? So sometimes, I get thrown off center because I always talk about being centered. You be centered. Sometimes you're thrown off center, and that's okay. It's okay to happen. You're human. We're all human. We're in this experiencing it together. So, you know, this connection with you, with Mitch, like, it's all a human experience, right? So it's
opening
meant to
up,
happen.
Let's talk a little bit about opening up your own brokerage.
Yeah.
Okay. So you just took the plunge. What was it? You said 2 weeks ago.
It's been 2 weeks. Yeah.
2 weeks?
Yeah.
2 weeks, right? Yeah. Wow. Okay. So that's new information to a lot of people if they haven't heard in the last 2 weeks. Why opening up your own brokerage? You kind of mentioned you don't want to be bound by anything, something like that.
So 2 weeks, 2 years ago, I did own my own brokerage. And then I was very self-conscious. So I was like, do guys want to work for a female leader?
Right.
It was very self-conscious. So I went under an umbrella. I went under a brokerage. And then October, I realized, because it takes a while. Like, yes, 2 weeks ago it happened. It takes a while to actually get licensed by our like governing body. That's
true. To open up a whole brokerage, that's not easy.
It's very complicated. So in October, we decided, you know what? We're going to do it, right? So we went off and we opened up TCG Lending Centers, right? So TCG Lending Centers embodies, you know, a vision. And the vision is transparency, values, morals, respect for our agents to Honestly, like, and this is the more like for you, not like you may not know the mortgage industry. The mortgage industry has now made our profession where you are employed by me, but you shouldn't be. You're a subcontractor. You have the full flexibility to go out and build as big as you want business wise. I shouldn't, as the broker, like broker owner, control your business and say, well, if you want to go out, then you're going to have to, I don't know, there's so many restrictions around you.
So
I don't want to do that.
To, so just for listeners and just so I can kind of understand.
So Remax, Royal LePage, I don't know if I'm allowed to say that, but yeah.
Yeah, it's similar, well, we could definitely say business model in the sense that it's like you have a brokerage, you have a lead, you know, so what's your goals for the brokerage? Are you wanting to turn into like multi-office across Canada?
100% I do, yes.
I figured you would say that.
Yeah, so we're coming soon. First time announcing it. We're looking for an office space in Niagara. Once we find that we have a team out here. Mississauga is looking for a location. I have one in London. We're just trying to put a team in there. We are trying to go across, which it will happen. I'm always about, and we talk about entrepreneurs, I'm always about business plans and vision boards, right? So I love the vision board.
Organizing your ideas.
100%. So, and I would suggest this even for you or anybody, create the vision board. Create your vision board. Essentially, you know, put on paper what you want in the next 6 months, 12 months, 18 months. So every 6 months I sit with my team. It's since the pandemic, it's been hard, but it's one of the best projects we do together because we mess around, we, joke around, we do all that, but we actually put, our plans on a board, and it's funny. Like it's like fun. It's not like, serious. It's, you cut out for magazines, you do whatever you want to do. But that's on your vision board for the next 6 months to accomplish. I do want to say, like, my vision board has come over and over. Like everything I put on that vision board, I may not see it happening today, but 6 months to 12 months, it always happens.
And I think that goes back to, I read a book one time, Think and Grow Rich, which you've probably read knowing you.
Yeah.
But one of the things that it talked about was writing down your goals and then saying them to yourself every single day. I actually did that for 6 months every single day. I said, okay, I want to make this much in this month. I want to make this much in this month. Did that every single day, and I did it, and I beat my goals.
That's amazing.
It was like goals that you kind of thought, whoa, if I could hit those, that's pretty big. Like at 18, that's pretty cool that if you can hit those, right, and make that an accomplishment. Now, for you, how do you organize? Now, you brought up the vision board. Is that one of the only ways that you organize your ideas? Because a lot of people, before you answer that, a lot of people are creatives, right? They have all these ideas. I mean, the human brain comes up with 5,000 ideas a day.
100%,
so you explain to me how you organize those ideas.
So I have a team. So I sit down with my team. Jamie is all about my creativity. So if I sit with Jamie, so let's talk about, I don't know if you've watched my launch video. So that launch video, so I would take a look at it. So the launch video took a long time to come up with. I'm sorry, Jamie, because I kept going back and saying, no, it's this. No, it's this. But he's like, I'm not Steven Spielberg. Like, what do you want me to do? But I had this vision. I have the best team and support system. Yeah. So if I go to my husband, I'll go to him first. I'll say, listen, this is what I'm thinking. He'll give me a look, and I'm like, okay, maybe he thinks I'm crazy. Okay, well, we're going to do it, right?
Feeling people out. See the ideas.
But he's the first one. Usually it'll go to Zervain, my husband. I'll go to him, and then I'll go to Jamie for creativity. I'll go to Lisa to implement something in the brokerage. But at home, it's normally with just my husband. I'm like, hey, I'm thinking cash-wise, we're going to do this, and he always supports my vision. So I don't think he's ever said, no, that doesn't sound good. He's always been like, you know what? Yeah, let's do it. I think it's a good idea.
And that helps you organize how to.
100%. So he's the finance guy. He's the one that would be like, yes, no, maybe so. So he's good like that. But like I said, like the creativity would be Jamie. And then my team, my admin team, which would be like my direct team, I go to them and say, hey, this is what I'm thinking about brokerage-wise. So I'll have Edward, who's the regulator. He's like, let me check with the regulator. Let's see if we can do this. And then I have Shannon who writes it all down. And then Lisa's the one that will implement it and put it towards the team and send it out to the team. So I'm blessed and fortunate enough to have all these people that, and I'm on the fly. So I thought you say 1,000 You have no idea. I will be washing dishes or I'll be teaching the kids and it'll hit me and I have to talk about it right away. So I'm the person that I can't even write it down because I'll forget it. So I'll just say it as soon as, so Zervain will be my first sounding board. Hey, what do you think about this? I just came up with it. So I feel bad for him because we'll be like, and then I'll cut off a sentence. I'm like, wait, I have an idea, right? So
yeah, I love it.
And he's the one that will record. So he's like, hey, okay, Siri, or okay, Google, and then he'll put it in. So that's what I mean. Like I'm blessed and fortunate enough that, you know, that's how I operate.
Well, so. and the biggest thing is like, I would say that, you know, people would say, oh, well, you're just lucky to have the people around you. No. You surrounded yourself with those people 100%. Intentionally, with Jamie, with your husband. I mean, you wouldn't marry the guy,
yeah, I know,
right? If you didn't want to be around him.
For sure.
So what would be some advice that you would give to somebody wanting to surround, like, you know, okay, so
we just talked about this.
Yeah, I'm 18, right? So a lot of people, they're at school, they're just partying away. And I talked to a lot of my clients that are like 30, 35, and they said, man, what you're doing at 18, I was just like partying, getting hammered on a Friday night. And I'm seeing that some people that I know that they're doing that now, and how much the people that are 35 regret it, right? But they're still successful people financially. It's just they wish they would have done it earlier. So what would be some advice that you would give to somebody to intentionally surround yourself with individuals that motivate you?
We just talked about. So this was one of, so I always say it's always good to do a purge, right? Mm. So, you know, if somebody's causing more heartache and more headaches, I say, then you know, it's always good to reevaluate your circle. Who do you deal with? I'm always about this. I want you to know I'm a dreamer. So I'm like, hey, this is it. So if you come at me and you're like the naysayers, I'm always like the naysayers.
Right.
If you're a naysayer and it somewhat puts me off of my frequency, chances are you won't survive in my circle. So I'm always like, you know what? But I didn't learn this at a young age. And I wish that I had learned this at a young age. So I was the one at 13. I had 4 jobs. I was working, I was building, you know, money. I had a vision. I wanted to get out of more. So I wanted to be my dad's income or my brother's income. Right. So I was like, I don't want to be a stay-at-home mom. So I am going to have kids, but I still want to work. Right. So I still want to do that. I still want to be super successful. Right. So I want it where I can actually do it all, and I can, right? So,
and people will probably call you crazy to say that. 10 years ago,
100%. Oh yeah, 100%. Because they were like, "How can you work?" Like I was selling mortgages with a 5-month-old in my car seat, right? Like I was signing mortgages. I was doing 40 million.
It's one thing to you know be a dude and just work your ass off, live in a bachelor apartment and just work 70 hours a week. It's another thing to try to work 50, 60 hours a week, or even just 40 hours a week.
And you're still going home taking care of a baby.
Produce the same or if not better results.
100%.
It's a big thing.
It is. And that's what I'm saying. Like the one thing I wish, and I would advise anybody, to all the naysayers, to people that are not encouraging you to do this, like this is phenomenal, right? Like I find this awesome. Like this is what I do. I'm like, I hope my kids are like that.
Thank you.
I hope my children, you know, like they're, you know, and they aspire to do things. Like they now do that, right? Like I watch both of them, like all 4 of them. I watch them all, but the 2 youngest ones, they watch you. They watch what you're doing. Like they're like, and I told them I was coming here, and they're like, oh, so what does he do? I want to see. Who is he, right? So they'll PI it. And my daughter's 5. Like, you know what I mean? She's like, he's a YouTuber. So where is he? I want to see. So now they subscribed, right? So they're like, they subscribe and they will watch this, right? So I'm like, I hope you bleep this. But that's what I'm saying. Like, I just hope, like the one thing I would suggest to anybody, to my younger self, if I could go back, I wish I would have surrounded myself with people that were positive, because when you're in a positive environment, when you have the best crew around you that follow you, that, you know, that want to help you succeed, you will succeed tenfold. Like I can't even emphasize that.
They call it your mastermind group.
100%.
You don't have to be a master at everything. You know, it's one thing to be great at, you know, editing, and I use video as an example. It's one thing to be great at editing. Well, if you're not good at filming, find a person to film. Split it 50-50 with them. Like there's so many ways to build businesses, to, you know, accent your skills in other industries. And it's like, you know what? People just don't want to surround themselves with other people to do that.
For sure.
And it's your loss, right? But let's talk a little bit about mindset. So we kind of have this whole podcast, and as we kind of start to dwindle this down, I want to ask you, what is have you had an aha moment quote that you were like, whoa? I know I have. That's why I ask you. Have you?
I have 100%.
And what would it be?
So that was during my fasting, when I realized this life is more than just money. It's all about the human connection. So me connecting with you, with, you know, anybody in the room, I realized that I used to just be in a bubble. Right. You'd be in a bubble, and you know that, right? Yep. So then you have this, you know, and it would chalk up more to when my dad passed away. So when my dad passed away, everything just, your whole life shatters and changes, right? So I used to live in that bubble where I was like, I'm better than everybody. I'm like, blah, blah, blah. And I was an arrogant asshole, and I was egotistic. I wouldn't just talk to anybody. It was ignorant, right? And I missed out on so many human connections, and people forget we're all connected. Like I do now, I am interested to know people's lives. I'm like, wow, I'm so interested. Like, you know, and I do love that whole aspect of the human connection. So I realized at that time, you know, watching my dad pass away, I'm like, holy shit, there's a lot more to this life than just, you know, money.
Making some money.
You have no idea. Money comes easy after you learn about.
Yeah.
And life is so much easier when you're a good person, when you're kind, when you're loving, when you do unto others as you want done unto you, when you actually implement that in your life and you take that principle and put it in your life, your whole life changes. Because I'll be honest with you, when you fall, the people around you want to pick you up. Yeah. Where before, if you fell, people were like, good, you know, good. But now I watch it where, you know, it's not just my husband asking, are you okay? As soon as my team senses something's off, they're like, hey, the whole team comes together and they're like, are you okay? Is everything okay? Right. Can we help you? Like, that is a tribe, right? Like, you create that tribe and you create that love. You create that circle that nobody will ever break it.
And I remember you said something very interesting. You talked about money and, you know, how you manage your emotions around money and how you learn to build relationships with people. And I remember personally when I started my business back like a year and a half ago, I was like, well, actually, even throughout grade 9 and 10 in high school. Okay. We're going back only like 5 years. I was so stuck up on trying to make a lot of money because I just wanted to prove people wrong. Like I am an entrepreneur. I can do this. Right. Yeah, and you push yourself so hard and then you do it. And then you realize nobody gives a living crap.
Yeah, 100%.
Nobody cares. And then when you make that, like I had my financial goal. Like if I make this, I am like, oh, I'm the number 1 18. I hit it and I was like, whoa, like nothing feels.
You turn around and your tribe's not there.
And you ask yourself, and what's interesting is that was 6 months ago. What did I start 6 months ago? This podcast.
That's amazing.
Right? So I was like, hold on a second. I got to reevaluate what I want to do here. This podcast isn't to make money. This podcast isn't to get brand deals or sponsorships. Sure, that's great. Sure, we want those. But in the end, it's the one-on-one connection that you build with somebody, asking them to come here on the studio, on the set, and genuinely just have a conversation with them. And the bonus, people get to hear us. People get to hear us. People get to hear me pick your brain on how you've developed your business, your mindset. And I love this. I have not done a podcast on emotions and managing your emotions. Yeah, and I think that's such a crucial one.
It is a hard one, but we are all human and we all have it. So if I always say where somebody's like, oh yeah, no, I'm fine. I'm always like, okay, you're probably the worst one. So just so you're aware, you're not self-aware. I love it. So now we've got an issue, right? Yep. But that's what I'm saying. Like remember, I interview a lot of people, you know, to become like, if they want to join the group, right? And I always analyze, I'm like, okay, so how hard is it going to be to get this person to change their behavior?
And open up.
Right? Yeah, to try to want to improve themselves, right? So, you know, I honestly, and I say because Mitch, you know, we're connected with him, but Mitch was one of the guys that when he came in, he threw me off my game. Right. Because he was there. He arrived. Like, he had lost his dad and, you know, he was awakened. And I was like, oh. And then I had a lot of aha moment. Like, he was the one that made me realize I can do this on my own. He wants to work he's like, I don't care about the company you're with. I care about you. And I'm like, oh, he doesn't care about, you know, if I'm female or male. He doesn't care. And he's like, no. He's like, why would I? He's like, you're awesome. Like, you are different. You're doing something different. And it was my vision. And I was like, oh my gosh, I lost my game. Like, I think twice in this whole last year, I doubted the vision. I was like, you know, should I? And my husband like kicked my ass. He's like, no, like, get up, go. You know, you talk about being in bed and it's like, it's hard, right?
Just do it. Yeah.
Just do it. And you know what? I have to say, you're right. It's the tribe that you have. You know, it's the people that are behind you that are pushing you to do things. And, you know, I have to say, like, I talk about, you know, like this, I was telling my kids, I'm like, this is him, you know, I always include my kids in everything. You know, and I tell them, you can do it, right? Like we got mics, because they want to be gamers. Everybody wants to be a gamer now, right?
How do you think I started my media business? I wanted to be and from there, I started editing my own video game clips, like of me doing cool stuff. Yeah. And then I started editing clips for other people on Instagram. I would DM them. That's exactly how I started. So tell your kids that.
I'm going to tell them, because my kids, they're interested in this, right?
I made $1,300 that year, and I did like 70 videos. So let's just take the division. That's about like $40 a video or so. I don't even think that's it. I failed math. So I wouldn't know.
That's amazing. No, but that's what I'm saying. Like, that's what, you know, so that's why I push my kids to see this, to subscribe, to do all of that. Like, so they see that, look, he's very young. Like, he's doing it. Like, you can do it as well, right? So, but I would say, like, it starts within your home as well, how your parents raised you. And I always say this, you know, with my kids, we're all about positive mindset in the morning. When they wake up, you know, you have to stay positive. You have to stay in a positive frame of mind. And that's how they believe they can do it. But now what they're doing is exactly that. They're pre-recording, like they're talking, they're doing episodes together. And I love it because I'm like, okay, at this age, they're doing this by, you know, in a couple of years, they'll start recording, they'll start doing it. Right. So it's awesome. It's a good thing. But what you're doing here is awesome.
Thank you. Like, and you know what I think is important is I've always said, you know, I'm going to set really high expectations if I have a son one day, because it's like, if I know that I can do this at 18, I'm thinking, okay, I'm hoping that my son can be where I am at 16. And that's just not a realistic thing. However, seeing you set those examples for your children, it's 100%. A very motivating thing for people who are looking to build a family, because and I don't say this to be unhumble or anything like that, but when I go and I have clients and I tell them my age, I just turned 18, I'll talk to them and say, wow, like I have a kid that's 12 or 13 or 14 and like they're not really. And I said, well, I didn't get started till I was like 16, 15, seriously. So you've got time, but it's all about the example that you set for your children and not even telling them how to do something. That's the worst thing you can do. It's just encouraging them.
If your parents did, you probably wouldn't have.
Yeah, it's exactly. Yeah. And it's encouraging them with whatever idea that they come up with and helping them build that frame of mind to actually produce and to act on it.
I love it.
I see it. And I think that's what you're doing phenomenal 100%, with your kids.
Yeah.
And 4, come on, that's no shy number, 4 kids.
Yeah.
Right.
So they're all great kids. Like my kids are good kids, but I'm very open with them, just like I am with the team. I always say transparency. I always say they're the exact same. I'm dealing with the same agents and kids. They're exactly the same.
And that's how you build great relationships.
100%.
Is full-time transparency, asking somebody, apologizing when you know you're in the wrong. It's just, that is how you build those strong relationships, which will bring you immense amount of money in the future. But to be honest with you, I think, like you said, you know, you get to this point of you've made enough money, let's say in 1 month, that you're kind of like, okay, what more is there? Like, what passion do I genuinely have? And I think ours align in the sense that building relationships with people and strong connections.
100%.
We know the money's going to come. We don't have to be, thankfully we've worked and we sacrificed the couple years that it took to build up the business and to work a ton, to make the money, to support ourselves. Now we don't have to worry about that. Now we can focus on building relationships, networking, connecting.
But I think people forget that it's a sales business, 100%. Right? Like this sales business is a relationship business. So
I don't think you could have said it any better. So I want to hold you to one thing. Okay, so you just opened up your brokerage. You're going to come back in a year from now. We'll have 100%. You back on the podcast.
Yep.
But we're going to replay all the goals that you had said to yourself. So what are 3 goals that you've set for this new open brokerage that you want to hit in a year?
So in a year, I'd like to see us at 150 agents. One thing I would like to see is I would like to move locations, like home-wise. I'd like to move home-wise. And then another one would be, I'm looking to do the private side. I'd like to look to maybe open in a private mortgages, like doing private mortgages.
It's kind of like private wealth and finance in a
Correct.
sense.
Yeah.
Okay.
But that's more down the road.
Yeah,
so
I love it.
But the main 2 would be, I'm going to be at 150, and volume wise, I'd like to be at 750 mil. I hate putting that out there, but that's
I'm hitting you on the spot. No, that's okay. You know what?
So 750 mil is where I'd like to be with 150 agents.
we'll hold you to it, and we'll get you back on the podcast, and we will humble you if you didn't do it.
I know.
We'll ask you, what are you doing now to make sure that happens?
For sure.
Okay?
I'm excited. This is
Carmen,
awesome.
thank you so much. This was a fantastic podcast. And
Love
to
it.
anybody listening, if you didn't pick anything out of this, then clearly you didn't listen. So I appreciate you listening and tuning in, whether it's Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or any of the other platforms that we share this on, like YouTube. Thank you so much, guys, and we'll see you later. Thank you for listening to this week's Golden Guest on the Meeting Gold podcast. If you learned something from today's episode, make sure to check out our other content on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Instagram, and YouTube. Also, make sure to leave us a follow while you're there. Thanks, and have a golden day.